State Representative Dave Reed joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
Busy times coming up in Harrisburg. The governor's budget address is coming up next week. Everybody looking forward to it. Revenue figures came in yesterday, not really good, and they haven't been for quite some time. What do you expect to come from the governor next month or next week, and then as we begin this process?
Well, I'm not really sure what to expect from the governor next week quite yet. Certainly, we've gotten a couple hints over the last couple weeks and the last couple months as to what he's looking at. In December, he took an increase in the personal income tax or the sales tax off the table. And over the last couple weeks, he's slowly unveiled some cost-saving measures. You know, he announced he was not going to fill 3,000 vacant positions in state government, which many of them have been vacant for a number of years, actually. Just last week, he announced the merger, at least from the administrative side, of 4 different cabinet agencies: the Department of Human Services, the Department of Health, the Department of Drug and Alcohol, and the Department of Aging. You know, about a week and a half ago, he announced the closing of SCI Pittsburgh. Now, I think that was partially budget-related, partially related to a decline in the projected number of inmates across the correctional system over the last couple years and into the future. So we've gotten some hints as to what he's looking at, but we don't truly know what he's going to propose until probably next Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, he did say that he would take another stab at Marcellus Shale, not impact fees, but extraction fees. That's one thing. And when the revenue figures came in yesterday, then voices across the state from a number of different sectors said, the formula just doesn't work. We have to raise taxes. What's your view?
Well, I mean, I guess we'll see what the governor proposes on Tuesday. Ultimately, he gets to make that call, at least from the beginning step in the process, and then we'll go through the appropriations hearings for about the next 3-4 weeks afterwards, both in the House and the Senate, and then we'll try to sit down, Republican, Democrat, House, Senate, and with the governor to try to get a budget to conclusion. And, you know, we're about 7 months through the fiscal year. Obviously, numbers have not come in where we would like them to be, but we still got a couple months to go, and, you know, we'll see what the governor's proposing, and we'll go from there. But I think you're right. He'll propose a severance tax. I think he'll probably propose a severance tax every year until one is enacted or we have a new governor. So I don't think that'll be a surprise to anybody, but there's a lot of other things that, you know, are really up in the air, and I'm anxious to see what he proposes.
So much of what is happening in state government right now, it has to do with the budget and that domino effect. For instance, income tax, personal taxes, yeah, the governor took them off the table, but with property tax reform, a real possibility, they could come right back onto the table. And even though that isn't strictly a budget message, it has a terrific impact on the budget.
Yeah, and I think talking about a personal income tax or a sales tax in relation to increasing spending or balancing a budget is one thing. Talking about it in the manner of trying to eliminate school property taxes is a whole nother discussion. And in fact, we had a pretty good discussion on Monday night here in Indiana County, where we had a statewide panel talking about public school finance and, you know, some of the different ways to alleviate the property tax and fund schools equitably. So, you know, I think you're right. It is certainly a potential for discussion when it comes to eliminating school property taxes. And I don't think the governor's opposed to that usage of a personal income tax or a sales tax, but, you know, just laid out that he's not going to do it for the budget this year.
Does an increased optimism coming out of Washington for business and job creation, does that have a long-term impact, and can that actually help in this year's budget process?
Well, I think anything that increases consumer confidence and leads to job creation is a positive. You know, whether that actually impacts our local economy or our state economy over the next couple months, you know, it's hard to tell, but hopefully that will bode well for the future years. And, you know, with a budget, you got to look at the short term, because you've got to balance our budget at the state level. Unlike the federal government, we can't deficit spend, we can't print money, we can't borrow money from other countries to balance our budget. But in the long term, you want something that's sustainable, and hopefully, you know, local economic growth and statewide economic growth can help lead to that possibility.
And as long as we're talking budget, and I'll let you go after the budget here, we'll go in another direction. Pension reform is always a big topic at this time of the year and all through the year. Is a balanced budget dependent on some sort of pension?
I think pension reform is something that we want to get off the plate this spring. We came so very close within 3 votes in the House last fall. And, you know, of course, the Senate never actually took it up for a vote. But hopefully we could get that off the plate. Had a chance to talk about that with the governor about 2 weeks ago. I think he's anxious to get it off the plate as well. And again, it doesn't provide that short-term relief from a budgetary vantage point, but what it does is it provides long-term stability and cost savings so that we're not in this process year after year after year, because really there are about 4 different cost drivers to the budget. It's our pension obligations, our debt service for monies that were spent, under the Rendell administration or the Ridge administration that we now have to pay back today. It's our correctional costs and our human service costs. You take those 4 increases off the table, we would have a balanced budget every year without even having to think about, raising any additional revenue.
State Representative Dave Reed with us, the House Majority Leader. Other things that we expect to see in the coming weeks and months in Harrisburg?
I think you will see the discussion on property tax elimination come back to the forefront. I think you're going to see, as we just mentioned, a discussion on pension reform. I think you'll probably see some discussion on gaming expansion that was left over from last year's budget process. And look, there's a lot of other issues out there in one form or another that will probably be discussed, but will be overshadowed potentially by the budget discussions and negotiations in the next couple months. One of those, of course, very important here in Indiana County is opioid addiction and finding, new, more effective manners of helping to, number one, prevent folks from becoming addicted to opioids to begin with. But number 2, how do we best treat folks who are unfortunately in that downward spiral today?
Listener wants to know, calling in this morning, about school taxes and property taxes. If we can't get it done for everybody, can we at least do something that's going to have a direct impact on retired or fixed income older seniors?
Well, I think, look, there's a host of options that are out there. My preference is complete elimination across the board. You could look at options that just eliminate school property taxes for residential property owners. Whether you're a 19-year-old couple living in a home that you bought for the first time or an 85-year-old couple living in a home that you've owned your entire life, you could look at just residential property tax elimination, which, that's where most of the concern is at anyway on folks' primary home and making sure they don't lose that home as a result of school property taxes. And certainly, look, there have been proposals out there in the past that would only eliminate school property taxes for senior citizens. It's all about, how you raise the money to replace that funding that goes to our local school districts across the Commonwealth. It's just a function of, who the relief impacts and where you raise the revenue and how you get it back to the school district. So I think there's a host of different options out there. Mm-hmm. Again, I think total elimination is the best route to go. But, if we could just eliminate residential school property taxes, that would be a huge step in the right direction.
State Representative Dave Reed with us. You have some events coming up too, don't you?
We do. We got a couple town hall meetings coming up here this spring. Our first one is the Indiana Town Hall meeting that we host every year jointly at St. Andrews Village, Thursday, February 23rd, 6 p.m. Then we go to Penn Run, which is at the Cherry Hill Township Volunteer Fire Company out there in Penn Run, Thursday, March 16th, 6 p.m. Brush Valley at the Brush Valley Volunteer Fire Department, Thursday, March 23rd, 6 p.m. And then we've got our job fair that we co-host with the County Commissioner, Senator White, and the CareerLink. And that this year is going to be at a different location, not S&T Bank Arena. It's actually going to be at the KCAC, Thursday, May 4th, at 11 a.m. till 4 p.m.
All right, those are very good points. And folks need to call the office, make sure.
Yeah, for any of those events, for the job fair, you don't have to RSVP. For the town hall meetings, we ask that you call just because we have juice and coffee and some cookies and that type of stuff so we can plan accordingly. But just call the office, 724-465-0220.
Job fair, usually there's like a half hour early or so for vets. Is that going to be the case? Or
I do think that is going to be the case again this year. We'll get more information out on that as we get closer to the date in May. But I know Kevin Laser over at the CareerLink, being a veteran himself, has really tried to partner with the local veteran organizations to help get the vets in a little bit early to look at the possibilities that are out there.
A couple of moments left with State Representative Dave Reed. We've had some good news from an economic standpoint with some job creation here in Indiana County in recent weeks. We'd love to see a turnaround. A lot of it has to do with the energy sector and the infrastructure to bring energy sector jobs here. Talk a little bit, if you would, about the way that we are positioned in that energy sector, our geographic location, and the resources we have available?
Well, look, it's no secret we have tremendous resources in western Pennsylvania, everything from our water resources to our natural gas resources to our coal resources to our access to the marketplace. Unfortunately, when you had so many jobs related to the energy industry, when there was a downturn over the last couple of years, that impacted our area economically. But now that we're starting to see an uptick in natural gas prices, that stands to bode well for increased exploration, which will lead to job creation, getting some of those folks back into the place of employment. But I think the long-term impact is when you've got those energy resources here and we're right in the middle of it, you really have the opportunity to attract manufacturing, especially because the low cost of energy is one of the number one cost drivers for any manufacturing facility. And that's not something that you can, automatically take it to a different region of the country or a different region of the globe. So I think our opportunities are out there. You've got the cracker plant coming in Beaver County, and you'll see a lot of downstream and upstream opportunities throughout the entire region as a result of that plant. But I think we're poised for some great opportunities in the future. Unfortunately, they don't all happen overnight, and that's frustrating for me, and I'm sure all the other folks, who are on the economic development team and, folks living here in Indiana County. It's frustrating when you see an economic downturn, but hopefully we can recover from that and move forward. I mean, the announcement just a couple weeks ago of Gordon St. Clair, we're locating a new manufacturing facility here in Indiana County. I can't remember the last time we had a new manufacturing facility located here in Indiana County, starting with 50 jobs with the potential to maybe double or triple that workforce within a couple of years. I mean, that's an amazing opportunity that we've got to take advantage of and hopefully parlay that into other opportunities in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd. Have a good one.
State Representative Dave Reed with us here this morning, AM 1160 WCCS 101.1 FM. We are headed toward the top of the hour just a couple of moments from now, and we'll have Fox News coming your way then, after which a visit from our 1160 newsroom with Josh Widdison.